Hello, my name is Robert Moody. I'm a system engineering manager at the Home Depot. Uh, Really, what I cover and focus on is cyber threat intelligence. I'm the manager overseeing cyber intel in our security operations center. My career path is definitely a strange one. That's what I found in cybersecurity is that nobody has the same path, and you don't need to have the same background as everyone else. It's not a cookie cutter industry. Your experiences really do help bolster and prop up your thought process as an analyst or an engineer or an investigator. But for mine, I started as a digital forensics analyst. My role was to go and provide collections, provide chain of custody, and really just fly across the US and collect evidence. I was doing this during university. So as I studied my undergraduate at the University of Florida, I was specifically looking to become a geologist. I wanted to be a paleontologist and really loved Jurassic Park and dinosaurs, but that wasn't the career that I went with. I did digital forensics for a long time, about 5 years. Really worked my way through the ranks of the company that I had worked for, and began to hone that skill set and craft. And after some time, I decided that the next evolution of what I wanted to do required a master's degree. So I went and I studied at a university in Spain called IE University. They offered a master's degree in cybersecurity. Got to have amazing professors from around the world, from amazing companies. Got to really understand different aspects of cybersecurity. I always use the analogy that cybersecurity is like medicine. There's so many different disciplines, so many different subfields that you can work in, and this master's degree opened my eyes to that. So from there, I began to kind of follow the path towards cyber intelligence. This is really what I'm passionate about, having that understanding, proactive sense of what's going to happen for an organization. How can you do predictive threat modeling? How can you build this into your security processes so that you can best choose and prioritize your privacy and your security posture or specific controls that you want to implement? But I worked at Ernst & Young in Madrid, Spain for almost 2 years, got to work on really interesting projects with a great team and excellent leaders. They really made a big impact on me. After that time, I went over to work in Germany for one of the largest telcos. Again, amazing leaders, an incredible opportunity, and just being able to experience and see different parts of the world. It's been an amazing journey. And after some time there and really for some family reasons, I ended up coming back to the US. Now I work for Home Depot and really got to lead a team and focus on my tradecraft in Intel and working for an awesome organization as it is now. As most cyber intel units, we really focus on identifying threats to the organization, its brand, our customers, and we look to identify ways that we can best protect the organization and know what's out there and how best to respond in the quickest manner. So we stay on top of things like the news cycle, vulnerabilities that are coming out. We do predictive threat modeling. My team is very active using MITRE ATT&CK to best represent different attackers and then model the different types of threats and then work with our internal teams to put together security controls and tests to ensure that we are best protected against cyber adversaries as they look to come after us. Fraud, and then some more fraud, I definitely say are some of the big components or intricacies associated with cyber intel in the retail space. Retail is a very diverse group of organizations. The supply chain is enormous, depending on what products you're actually producing. The business impact is realized with any threat. You have a lot of financially motivated actors. I've worked again with financial services for large banks in Europe, telcos also in Europe, but I've got to see some of the other telcos throughout the world and worked as part of an international team at the company I work for in Germany. But really, retail is its own monster. It requires its own set of skills and understanding to really know how these cyber adversaries are looking to target your organization. You need to have that business context and business acumen to really understand what the dangers and threats are to your organization and how best to mitigate them. Another difference, I would say, is that these retail focused or financially focused or motivated cyber adversaries, they have a high capability and high intent to go after your organization. So there's constant attacks, there's constant movement, there's constant evolution in the way in which adversaries are tuning their techniques. It's not a cookie cutter approach. They're really trying to evolve and change as the defenders are evolving and changing so that they can achieve their end goal of financial gain. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, really that e-commerce online time period in which there's a lot of sales, a lot of traffic. There's a couple different threats that if you think the CIA triad, I'm not talking Central Intelligence Agency, I'm talking confidentiality, integrity, availability. You as a retailer are most worried about your systems being down, potential ransomware attack or denial of service attack. There's different ways in which actors can make it hurt on you as an organization, especially in those time periods of great customer interaction like the ones you mentioned. So you really have to up your game around that time period, make sure that your privacy and security controls are aligned. You know what's going on in the space. You know the different techniques that you're most likely going to be hit with, and then you're proactive in your approach. You're working with the rest of your team. And again, cybersecurity is a team sport, so it requires many different groups to come together to protect your organization, whether it's email security hygiene, whether it's your endpoint security team, your traditional blue team, if you're having a proactive red team, your intel team, of course, and you really have to bring them all together to stop threats and attacks during that time period. So I have been fortunate enough to at least get to ride the LinkedIn wave or really get to see the space grow to some degree. Of course, there's analysts or investigators that have been in this longer than I have, but really there's been a drastic evolution in the industry, at least in my opinion. You're starting to see more roles show up. I read a very interesting article the other day, the evolution of the intel officer in organizations and big companies. And I think that's the direction it's going. It's the requirement and need for more of that strategic guidance based off of intelligence, having that understanding of what exists in your space or your threat landscape is important for boards to know about. It's important to bring into that context, whether you report to a CIO, a CISO, CTO. Really, at the end of the day, you'll be able to provide as an intel officer or manager or analyst the context around what's going on in your threat landscape so that the board or your decision makers, your senior leadership can make those strategic decisions. And that's what I really see Intel trending towards, is having more access to higher level decision makers, more respect being thrown towards what cybersecurity is saying as a whole, and prioritizing both business decisions as well as technological decisions around what your cybersecurity teams are sharing. And Intel is going to have a big part of that going forward. First thing I would say is don't get turned off by not thinking you're qualified enough. There's enough imposter syndrome in cybersecurity as an industry. I'd say if you're interested in working in intelligence, think of yourself as an educator, understand what's going on out in the space, find some good sources, whether it's podcasts, high fidelity news sources. There's a few I'd recommend, but really try to get an understanding of what's going on and really build your knowledge and set an information set off of that information that you're seeing. And if you're not understanding something, there's plenty of good resources out there. So take initiative, follow up. I'd say look to get certifications from groups like Crest, again, leader in the industry in that, and getting that knowledge and that basic understanding and foundation for what cyber intelligence is. That's a good start. But try to learn as much as you can, and don't get turned off if you don't think you're qualified. Work towards it. There will be lots of opportunities in the future. Absolutely. Someone that I'd recommend definitely is Beers with Talos from Talos. So Talos is the incident response wing of Cisco, the very interesting podcast. I also really like The Record by Recorded Future, awesome one. Shadow Talks by Digital Shadows. Again, a lot of vendors have started putting out really interesting podcasts that address the news cycle as well as other topics in cybersecurity that are important for everyone from a leadership down to your most basic analyst. You can get something out of these. There's two presentations that myself and my co-presenter, Ben Horvath, gave at the conference. One was towards the prioritization of security controls. We leveraged the MITRE ATT&CK framework and showed how we could take an understanding both from a business and a regional conceptual point, bring that in, map that to cyber adversaries that are relevant and useful in the wild, and who may attack you, and then brought that back again to MITRE ATT&CK from a framework standpoint, and then started building out and showing how you can take that from a cybersecurity control standpoint and really help you align what you're doing as an organization, both from a red team offensive standpoint, a blue team defensive standpoint, as well as a predictive threat modeling from like a GRC or risk standpoint as well. The second one was around active defense. Active defense is a concept Vince and I have talked about at length. It's a quarterly assessment. I know one of the questions we got during the conference was that, how does this differ than a TIBR or a CBEST? It's very different in the sense that it's more of a small scale type of assessment that occurs on a quarterly basis. This is kind of a preparedness drill. So if you think that from a disaster recovery standpoint, how are you testing your different mechanisms and systems in case there's a disaster? This is similar, that you're trying to test what would our different teams do in the case that there was a cyber attack, and specifically from this adversary? How would we respond to the tools, techniques, and procedures used by this group? Would we be able to detect it with our endpoints? Would we be able to detect it on the network standpoint? How would we go about specifically addressing these issues? You should definitely check it out. Vince is a funny guy, and definitely it was an enjoyable experience for us, and hopefully that passion was conveyed during our presentation.